The stars whispered of ancient ghosts, of empires long dead, of something worse than war. Across the sable reach, a galactic expanse stretching tens of thousands of light years, over 1,000 intelligent species had emerged. They built cities of crystal and code. They harnessed the gravity of neutron stars. They mastered languages that transcended speech. But one name had been erased so thoroughly that even speaking it was punishable by death. Humans. Their name lived only in whispers, passed from mouth to mouth in forbidden songs, etched into the walls of ruins by hands long gone. Most called them a cautionary tale. Some called them demons. But the rulers of the galaxy, the Siroth Concord, called them non-existent. For over 3 millennia, the Siroth Concord had ruled with clinical perfection. Descended from cold-blooded, psionically linked reptilian beings, the Siroth believed in order above all. Their society valued hierarchy, obedience, and absolute control. Emotion was considered weakness. Innovation was allowed, but only within approved bounds. Art existed only as propaganda. Culture was curated. Their fleets were vast, identical, and perfectly synchronized, piloted by officers grown in strategic nurseries and educated in obedience before language. The Concord didn't conquer out of greed. They conquered out of ideology. Disorder was a threat to existence, and so they eliminated it. Under the Concord's grip, the galaxy was clean and cold. The insectoid Juxan hivekin were permitted to govern their breeding clusters, so long as their queens bent the knee. The aquatic Olari communion controlled 9 water worlds, but their minds were tethered by Concord neural regulators. The silicon-based Trinvac fold had once built weapons that could slice through moons. Now they built reactors for the Concord, efficiently, quietly. Open rebellion was rare. Surveillance was total. The Siroth didn't kill indiscriminately. They killed precisely. Planetary compliance stood at 99.4%. And through all of this, one subject was forbidden: the precursor anomaly, humanity. No species had ever spread as fast. No species had ever burned so hot. According to the fragments left behind, humans had once held thousands of worlds, before they were even 2 centuries into interstellar travel. But their rise had terrified the early Concord ancestors. Humans didn't seek balance. They didn't submit. They adapted, replicated, and refused to die. The Concord's earliest records, heavily redacted, referred to Project Silence, a final solution. Entire human systems glassified, archives deleted, survivors hunted beyond charted space. It was declared a success. The myth declared it genocide. Either way, the humans were gone. Extinct. Erased. So when Sector Sigma 9 detected an unauthorized fleet breaching the dead fringe, a swath of space left abandoned for 1,000 years, the Concord responded with routine protocol. A single dreadnought, the Kirillith's Fang, was dispatched.
Standard response for suspected pirate activity. The command crew expected a few stolen freighters, maybe an outlaw refueling depot. Instead, they found them. The ships were jagged and brutal. Not Concorde sleek, but built for function. Armour scorched, hulls thick with overlapping alloys designed to take a beating and still fly. They bore no known registration, but each one pulsed with a strange, old energy. Commander Reth Zerun, veteran of the Siege of Dravan, hailed the fleet. "This is Commander Zerun of the Siroth Concorde. Identify yourselves or face eradication under Concorde Statute 117 Vermilion." The reply came in a language the archives had purged, but the onboard linguistics AI struggled, then froze. Translation locked. 2 seconds later, the comms burst to life, transmitting across all open bands. "We are humans. Surrender or be destroyed." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Then laughter. One tactical officer choked, "Must be a cult. Pirates playing ancient myth." Zeren didn't laugh. His sensors showed something terrifying. These ships, while archaic, moved like predators. No hesitation, no inefficiency, formation perfect, weapons charged, no wasted motion. Still, he was Concorde bred, and protocol demanded swift elimination of anomalies, so he gave the order to fire. That was his last mistake.
The Kirillith's fang opened fire first. Concorde plasma lances shrieked across the void, surgical, white-hot, engineered for precision strikes. In countless prior conflicts, that opening salvo had ended entire rebellions in seconds. This time, it hit nothing but empty space. The human ships didn't move like machines, they moved like predators. In perfect silence, they split formation mid-volley, angles twisted, thrusters fired in unorthodox patterns. The dreadnoughts targeting AI hesitated, failing to predict their paths. Then the return fire came. Kinetic slugs, missiles, railgun bursts, crude by Concorde standards, antiquated, unshielded, and devastating. The first Concorde destroyer erupted in flame, its inertial dampeners shattered by a tungsten spike that tore through the midsection like a spear through wet paper. Another was crippled by an old-fashioned missile, silent, slow by modern speeds, but shield-piercing and payload-heavy. It struck the engine core. The resulting explosion cracked the hull into 3 pieces, spinning into the dark. On the bridge of the Kirillith's fang, Commander Zerun stared in disbelief. His ship, a war platform that had once laid siege to an entire planetary defense grid, was reading hull fractures, internal breaches, system overloads, and the humans hadn't even closed to full range. He opened his mouth to give new orders. A railgun round punched through the command spire. The dreadnought died 32 seconds later. The battle lasted 42 minutes. The Concorde lost 13 ships. The humans lost none. The human fleet did not pause, did not gloat. They simply accelerated into deeper Concorde space, as if the engagement were a formality. The system's lone surviving satellite caught a final broadcast from the attackers. "We remember." The message reached the Concorde's central military command within hours.
Across hundreds of star systems, alarm sirens shrieked for the first time in centuries. High Executor Zirath Vale, ruler of the Concord, convened the War Council within the vaulted nexus of Vale Zorith Prime. The chamber, etched in obsidian and lined with psionic obelisks, had not hosted a war council in over 600 years. That silence was broken now by holograms of death, wrecked Concord ships, blackened orbital debris, silent colonies. "These were not pirates," said Admiral Quan Raleigh, his tail lashing anxiously. "Their weapons are outdated, but they bypassed our shielding. Their fleet is disciplined, veteran-level coordination, and they spoke Old Galactic, a dialect no species uses anymore." Zirath's voice slithered across the chamber. "You believe these are humans?" Quan hesitated. "The possibility is not zero." The silence in the room thickened into something suffocating. An intelligence officer, a pale amphibious Blexari named Tessel, spoke up quietly. "All official records were purged in Cycle 1170, but restricted archives confirm the term. Humans, Terrans, origin species, Sol system, status, extinct by decree." "And if they're not?" Zirath asked. No one answered. Within 2 weeks, the humans struck again, then again. Deep space listening posts, gone. Outer patrol fleets, ambushed. Entire Concord convoys, erased from the stars. The tactics were erratic, chaotic by Concord standards. The Siroth military prided itself on doctrine, formation, discipline. The humans brought unpredictability, asymmetry, and madness. They deployed decoy ships, scrambled transponders, and even used their own wreckage as kinetic weapons, slamming dead hulks into Siroth stations at relativistic speeds. More disturbing, they knew where to strike. They hit supply lines, reactor farms, navigation beacons, targets no enemy had ever considered. Each time they left only silence and a signal, broadcast from hijacked satellites. "This is not conquest, this is consequence." The Siroth Concord began to fray. On hundreds of worlds, local governors called for martial law. On others, riots erupted, fueled by whispers of the returning myths. Entire species remembered fragments. The Trinvac recalled their ancestors speaking of a species that refused extinction. The Olari sang forbidden laments of burning skyships and walking ghosts. Even among the Siroth elite, ancient minds began to question, what had we erased? In desperation, High Executor Zirath issued a galaxy-wide broadcast. The enemy is not human. They are imposters, terrorists. The Concord is eternal. We will eliminate this infestation. But it was too late. Across the stars, one truth could no longer be denied. The myths were real. The monsters had returned.
The Siroth Concord had fought wars before, against rebels, pirates, even rival empires in centuries past. They had always won, always imposed order. But this wasn't war as they understood it. This was something else. The humans didn't announce their invasions. They didn't deploy in neat orbital formations or broadcast demands. They appeared like phantoms, slipping past detection nets, infiltrating through blind spots in the sensor web, sometimes emerging from within Concord territory entirely, as if they'd been waiting. Within a month, the planet Kelros 9 fell. 2 weeks later, Draxil Hold was overrun. Then came the strike that shattered all illusions, the fall of Varn's Hollow, a critical Concord industrial world, home to over 2.4 billion citizens and a garrison of 700,000 soldiers. It fell in 6 hours. Concord warfare was automated, elegant, clean. Their soldiers acted more as supervisors of drone battalions and combat AI. Casualties were low, efficiency was high. But the humans landed. They marched. They fought in the mud, the ash, and the glass. They moved through smoke like spirits of vengeance, their armor black, unmarked, practical. Their weapons were crude by Concord standards, firing dense, supersonic slugs instead of plasma or energy pulses. But where a Cyroth drone would hesitate, a human would not. Where a Concord soldier would wait for orders, a human had already pulled the trigger. They fought in silence. They fought in the dark. They did not take prisoners. They left no survivors among armed defenders. Entire Concord divisions vanished overnight. When the dust settled on Varn's Hollow, the only thing left standing over the ruins of the Central Command Dome was a human banner, a simple cloth stitched with a single word in Old Galactic: remember. Inside the Concord's capital, Vale Zurith Prime, the panic became impossible to conceal. High Executor Zirath, flanked by his remaining advisors, addressed the Inner Apex Council. "Deploy the Omega-class dreadnoughts," demanded Admiral Quan. "If these Terrans want total war, let them choke on it." "We've already deployed them," whispered Intelligence Director Tessel, her voice hollow. "All 3. They're gone." Murmurs turned into shouts. Several advisors recoiled. One fell to his knees. "How?" Quan barked. "Those are fortress ships, fully shielded, each with the firepower of a planetary bombardment fleet." Tessel flicked her trembling fingers. Holograms unfolded, hull fractures, sabotage from within, ambushes using false beacon signals, mass driver strikes at unshielded vector points. "They adapted," she said. "They learned our tactics. They exploited weaknesses we didn't know we had. They're not just warriors. They're students of war." The Concord's military doctrine, so long unchallenged, began to collapse. Humans didn't seek territory. They struck infrastructure, refineries, logistics hubs, command AI cores. They hit at the root. And with each world that fell, the same truth echoed louder. They weren't spreading an empire. They were unmaking one. Concord propaganda tried to maintain control, broadcasting lies of victories, minimizing defeats, falsifying casualty counts. But rumors spread faster than light. Whispers of human soldiers who fought without rest, of black-clad spectres who melted through walls, of strike teams that appeared in dreams and left only fire. The fear was no longer among civilians alone. It had reached the generals. Then humanity did something that shook the galaxy to its core. They didn't just raise a world, they held one.
Cerix Delta, a heavily fortified Concord military production planet, fell after a 2-week siege. But instead of glassing it or leaving it in ruins, the humans stayed. They brought supplies. They repaired what was useful. They executed every Concord official, every military officer, every intelligence director. And then they raised their flag and declared the world sovereign. "We are not conquerors," the human broadcast said. "But this world was built on the bones of our dead. We take back what was stolen." That was when the galaxy understood. The humans weren't just retaliating, they were returning.
The Concord's outer territories were burning. Entire sectors had gone dark. Shipyards once considered untouchable had vanished beneath kinetic fire and orbital strikes. Worlds didn't fall in days anymore. They fell in hours. And the pattern was undeniable. The humans were not advancing randomly. They were targeting specific planets, archivist hubs, military command vaults, genetic databanks. It wasn't about expansion. It was investigation. Inside the subterranean vaults of Vale Zorith Prime, hidden beneath layers of security clearance and psionic encryption, the Cyroth stored their most ancient secrets. Records predating the Concord itself, from before the founding, from the Silence Wars. High Executor Sirath Vale had never read those archives. They were restricted even to him. But after a particularly devastating human assault on the inner core world Nexarus, where the Concord's first military AI had been born and then erased in seconds, he descended into the core archives. There, beneath a vault stamped with an ancient warning glyph, "They must not return," he found the truth. The humans had not disappeared through war. They had not destroyed themselves. They had been erased. 1,000 years ago, during the chaotic rise of early interstellar civilizations, humanity had expanded faster than any species before them, forging alliances, trading knowledge, innovating in warfare and exploration alike. They'd even created the first synthetic organic diplomacy corps, systems the Concord now claimed as their own. They weren't a threat because they were hostile. They were a threat because they were unstoppable. The early Cyroth feared what they could not control, and so, the records revealed, a decision was made. Entire human colonies were obliterated from orbit. Records were rewritten, archives scrubbed. Survivors were hunted across deep space. And then they were declared extinct. Officially, an unstable species eliminated in the name of galactic peace. Unofficially, genocide. Zirath stared at the records for hours. Images of burning cities, civilian transports ripped apart in space. Human children, faces contorted in terror, staring at war machines built in Concord factories. 1,000 years ago, the Cyroth had named themselves saviors. But history had a long memory, and humanity had never forgotten. They had not returned to conquer. They had returned to judge. On the outer rim world of Halvex, a human operative was captured alive for the first time. He was brought before the planetary governor, broadcast to hundreds of other Concord worlds as a show of strength. The governor sneered. "Why do you fight this war? You cannot win. You are relics. You are myths." The human simply said, "You made us ghosts. We came back to remind you what haunts does not beg for peace. It ends what made it." Then he activated the device sewn into his chest. The command dome vaporized in a pulse of white heat. The human was never even armed.
The skies above Vale Zorith Prime turned to fire. Concord early warning systems lit up too late. Their outer defense satellites, already compromised, their orbital platforms, turned against them from within. The human fleet didn't arrive in waves. It appeared all at once, as if it had always been waiting in the dark. Hundreds of warships, no transponders, no diplomatic signals, just burning trails and a single looping transmission. "You buried us. We remember." Anti-air systems fired blindly. Planetary rail batteries discharged until their barrels split. But it didn't matter. The humans had planned this assault for generations. Stealthcraft had infiltrated Concord command relays months ago. Defense algorithms had been rewritten from inside, and Concord soldiers, raised on propaganda, unused to real war, broke. Human dropships pierced the atmosphere like falling blades. Strike teams in black exosuits landed directly on the palace roof, bypassing entire layers of fortifications. They moved through smoke like phantoms. No hesitation, no posturing, no mercy. Inside the Concord war chamber, High Executor Zirath stood surrounded by flickering reports. Entire districts offline. Communications silent. Central Command overrun. Desperation set in. "Prepare the planetary annihilation protocol," Zirath ordered coldly. "If we cannot have this world..." The doors burst open. A human walked in. Unarmored. Calm. Flanked by two Terran shock troopers with blank visors and smoking rifles. Zirath recognized the human's face from the ancient files, one of the bloodlines marked for extermination. He stepped forward. "What do you want?" Zirath hissed, trembling. The human set his helmet down. "We're not here for revenge." He paused, his voice steel and fire. "We're here for justice." By dawn, the Concord was no more. Every High Counselor, every military strategist, every last executor of the ancient genocide was tried and executed. No pleas, no bargaining, just names, evidence, and judgment. Across the stars, Concord-controlled worlds received a final transmission. A human commander, face weathered but steady, speaking calmly before a simple grey backdrop. "The Siroth, Concord has fallen. Your rulers are dead. Your fleets are gone. For centuries you lived under tyranny, built on the bones of a people your ancestors tried to erase. You did not know, but we did. We are not here to rule you. We do not want your thrones. We want what was stolen, our name, our dead, our place in history."
resisted will face judgment. Those who did not will live free. Your galaxy is yours again. Use it wisely. The transmission ended, and so did an era. The capital burned quietly. Once, its towers pierced the clouds. Now they lay broken, casting long shadows over the shattered statues of Siroth supremacy. Over the tallest spire, a human flag hung limp in the still air. It would not stay long. Humanity did not stay to gloat. They buried their dead, burned what was corrupted, and then they vanished into the void once more. The galaxy watched, terrified, awed, free, because now they knew. The myths were true. The ghosts had returned. And if you erase a species, you had better hope they stay gone. Because humans do not forget. They do not forgive. But they understand justice.